Hello, and welcome back to Catapult Your Career, where we delve into the reality of various careers and explore practical advice for numerous professions. And on this particular episode, I'm really excited for this one. We're delving into the world of a coach trainer, and I'm sure we'll dive into other things as well. But I've got none other, a really good friend in Naomi. So, how are you, Naomi?
Hello, good, very good, thank you. Yeah, really pleased to be here, pleased to be with you.
Thank you, and it's good. It's good to have you here. And Naomi has been a very fundamental part of my own coaching journey. So I've mentioned in passing I did my coaching qualification at a company called Full Circle, and Naomi was the kind of senior kind of head trainer of that program. And I unfortunately Naomi couldn't get rid of me after I finished the program.
I tried.
And then I asked if Naomi very kindly continued to be more of a mentor figure to me in my kind of coaching journey, which she gratefully kind of accepted. So, without further ado, I suppose, Naomi, this podcast is very much delving into various industries and careers. But as a starter, give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and your background.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And like I said, thank you very much for having me. So yeah, my name's Naomi. I have a company called Alma Explore. So many definitions and understandings behind what that means, but ultimately it's Alma means soul in Spanish. It's also my second name. It was my great grandma's name, but it's searching your soul, exploring your soul. And I guess what's within that within my company is both my role as a coach and a coach trainer, which is, I guess, what I think you're looking for me to talk a little bit more about today, because I think you have already spoken to coaches, and I guess you know a lot about that yourself. But my role as a trainer, I've been working as a coach trainer for the past 5-6 years now, with various organizations, but mostly with Full Circle that you mentioned earlier, who were I don't know what the right word is, the organization that spotted me. Gillian, who is the managing director of Full Circle, the owner of Full Circle. I trained with them myself, and she sort of had a chat with me afterwards, and down the line, and said, would you be interested in becoming a trainer, in teaching what you've learned with us, kind of thing, once you've built your practice and things like that. And I was like, no. Like, both my parents and my grandparents were all teachers. So I was like, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm going to be like going to refuse the signs that the universe is sending me. And then she was like, "Do you want to be a trainer?" I was like, "Is trainer different? Is it different to teacher or not?" But no, jokes aside, I was like, yes, absolutely, yes, please. And haven't looked back since. I absolutely love it. And so I work with Full Circle. I work with a couple of other organizations I live in France, so more in France, in Luxembourg, in Switzerland. And then with my own company, I do quite a bit of sort of like leadership training, which is basically coaching training, like manager as coach training. It's in France we call it savoir faire and savoir être. I don't know what you call that in English. It's like savoir faire is how to do things. So what people are coming onto your podcast to explain, right? How they do their job. And how
Yep.
I work with managers is the savoir être. So how to be, how to show up, how to communicate, how to listen, how to know yourself better, how to listen to others better, etc., etc. So that's kind of, yeah, I don't know. I've already started waffling. I told you I would.
No, honestly, no. I think not being included with the listeners. I think that's a really comprehensive background of what you do, and it clearly I've tried my hardest to pick people not just for the sake of kind of covering careers, but have a real passion from the career they're doing, and it just absolutely comes out in abundance. And there's a reason why I kind of try to kind of keep on your coattails because that passion comes out. And I suppose just before you got to that kind of wearing those many hats, the coach and the
Mm.
coach trainer, amongst other things. Why coaching?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first 7, 8, nearly 10 years of my career, I worked in marketing. I worked for in the sports industry for a brand called Babolat, it's a tennis manufacturer. My passion was tennis. My passion was sport. And coming out of business school, I was absolutely like thrilled to get a job working for that organization. And I ended up working for one of the business units that was in charge of like all things badminton. And badminton is huge in Asia. So I was like traveling to Asia back and forth every 6 weeks. It was like I was I don't know how old I was then, a long time ago. I was like, I don't know, between 20, 28 and 35 or something. And it was just like my dream job at the time, and just absolutely, was really passionate about it, but something didn't feel right, despite the sort of like excitement of, I was going to tennis tournaments and meeting famous tennis players, and then going to Asia and going to badminton events and going to factories. And it was just like exciting. But all the time in the back of my head, there was this kind of like, there's something missing. This, like, you're not fulfilling your own potential, and which I just ignored. And then after, maybe 7, 8 years within the organization, I started progressively to get tireder and tireder, just sort of almost, I don't like to use the word burnout because I think it's like overused almost, but I think I was definitely close to burnout. And I kind of just decided to take a break for a couple of weeks, couple of months, which ended up turning into separating and leaving the organization, which tallied perfectly with my partner at the time leaving me and finding myself back on my parents' sofa thinking, oh, I don't have a job, I don't have a partner, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And coaching just kind of like kept being thrown at me. I kept like reading it, I kept seeing it, and and this is something I'm sure we'll talk about later on, but I kind of just kept ignoring it. What I'd loved so much about my job is I managed teams, events teams on tournaments of like 50 plus people. In the office, I had a team of, 5, 6 people. So I really loved the kind of human part, the connecting, the understanding what made people tick. Um, and then when I in that sort of phase when I went back to my parents and I'm without job, etc., I went traveling. I was just like pre-COVID. This is well pre-COVID. I went traveling in South America with a friend for 6 months. And one day we were walking in this national park in, I think it was Ecuador. It was just like this gorgeous, massive national park. And we kind of like walk together and chat a lot. And we were just walking like just a couple of, 10 meters apart. And literally just kind of, almost like if it was a cartoon, it would have been like a lightning bolt that kind of like hit my head, just being like, you should be a coach. And I just turned around and said to my friend, I was like, I think I should be a coach when we go back to France. I think I should look it up and like go into coaching. And it was really weird because I then went back to like notebooks and stuff, like, journals that I'd written, and I'd written coaching like 10 times or more, but I'd never just like, and it just kind of came to me and I was like, yeah, that's it. And then I went back, did loads of research, ICF, took me to full circle, and then the rest was history. But it just took me really like a long time to hear and kind of see the signs. But yeah, if that answers your question, but yeah.
100%. And I think there's a lot of people that can probably, hopefully, kind of pull out similarities into their life story as well. And I think that for me, it was quite similar. That it's easy with hindsight to look back, and you mentioned how you loved managing people, and that was kind of a key aspect. And that's something I definitely agree on. So, like, I look back at my various kind of roles, like, kind of before moving into the coaching space, and my biggest accomplishments weren't moving KPIs and numbers up and down. It was the lives and the people I like kind of change. And I always talk about one person in particular who worked under me in an administration role, and I hated it. And through one-to-ones and various things, I managed to kind of move into a more clinical role, and they're still in it to this day. And I think that's the biggest thing, regardless of numbers going up and down. That was the thing I took out of it. And it seems like you had a similar kind of journey and a similar path almost.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great example. I think for me, that how I kind of came to understand it was also so I was with the same organization for 8 years or so. When they kept coming back to me and be like, "Do you want to move to this business unit? Do you want to take on this role?" I was like, "Why?" They were like, "Because nobody else wants to do it. Nobody else can like." It was like really multicultural environment. Nobody else wants to communicate with these stakeholders. Wants to take on this. Nobody else is able to have that sort of like patience and listening. I was like, can I? And they were like, yeah, you can do it, you can do it. And I think I didn't recognize at the time that actually my strength, like exactly like you were saying, was actually the bringing together of people, the listening, the being able to hear different things, the being able to like step back and look at, okay, actually what's going on for such and such individual. But again, like hindsight is such a magical thing when you're in the thick of it. It's not necessarily so easy, but yeah, really resonates.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting about also pushing it away. And I know that core theme or core concepts I took away from Full Circle is going to go into your authentic self. And it's like you were kind of pushing that nagging thought away. But I suppose kind of moving into the process of perhaps, and you can
Yeah.
obviously you can touch on your own experience. What's the process like if you were to kind of illustrate for us, the process of becoming a coach and coach trainer? What's that kind of journey actually look like?
Yeah, it's a great question to which I think there's like multiple answers, I guess. There's I mean, you know as well as I do that there's a lot of people out there calling themselves coaches but that have no formal training, but you know that both you and I have been through formal training with ICF accredited coaching schools. So ICF being the International Coaching Federation, which is like the gold, standard, the gold badge of coaching worldwide. Um, and so I literally just went on their website and looked for a training provider. Had conversations on the telephone with like 3 or 4 of them, and I really connected and resonated with the Full Circle's mission. So ended up with them. But to become a coach, it's in my eyes as a ICF trainer as well, coach trainer, um, absolutely recommends that you do an ICF accredited course to become a coach. And even if it's not an ICF accredited coach, that it's a course that resonates with who you are, with what you want to do, who you want to become, and that it's not just like a certificate. It's not like just a tick box exercise. I think exactly like you were saying to me that before we started recording, that when you're back on the course, everything that you heard, you were like, yeah, sure, like it's not going to be that transformation. I'm not going to learn that much. The actual experience of everything that you learn on these courses is almost then what you go away and help your clients to do afterwards. So you have to have experienced it yourself. You have to have like put yourself through the challenging moments. You have to have like thought to yourself, can I do this? Am I able to stretched yourself, challenged yourself. So I think doing a course is one thing, and then it's getting out there and getting the practice, getting the hours. It's again, I think it's almost like, I don't know. I remember starting off, it's just kind of being humble, almost like to no job is too small, no client is unworthy kind of thing. Really just getting out there and practicing your skills. Because again, I don't want to go into the details of the ICF, but there's different levels of accreditation that you can go for, and you need a certain amount of coaching hours, but they're there for a reason, is to validate your skills by practicing. Practice makes perfect kind of thing. So to become a coach, yeah, it's a training course, it's hours, it's supervision, it's guidance, like you're doing with me, mentoring. And I do it myself. I've been coaching for years, and yet I still have supervision, still go to a mentor, because you pick up bad habits, because unconscious bias. There's so many things that get in the way. So I think it's just, as a coach, you're helping somebody to better understand themselves. So you constantly have to be working on, how do I better understand myself? Like Gillian and I often laugh about the fact that, like, you know, we've been working on ourselves for years, like our self-development. And you're like, oh, yeah, peeled back another layer. There's something else to work on. There's something else and you have to have that like vulnerability, that humbleness, that openness to work on yourself. So that's becoming a coach. And then a coach trainer, it's kind of just like a parallel journey, is coach teacher training with the organization that you're going to work with, on the program, on the competencies, on the ICF core competencies. I'm going through this massive like Bible worth of explanation at the moment, detailed explanation of markers on how the competencies show up and how people demonstrate them, so that you can observe a coaching session and mark it and things like that. So yeah, it's like, I mean, I guess like becoming a teacher, right? It's teacher training, and then practice. The first time I delivered it, I co-delivered it, or I watched somebody deliver it and shadowed them, and then co-delivered it, and etc. etc. So it's a path, it's a journey, it's patience required to pick things up. And I always say on every course I deliver, and I must deliver, good question, how many courses do I deliver a year? 30, 40, 50? Like, I mean, full 6-9 months courses, I probably deliver like 10 a year, but like little snippets here and there in the organization, I know 50 odd courses in the year. But I say to everyone, I learn something new every time I deliver a course. And if I didn't, it would almost
Yeah,
be worrying. It's because I'm also questioning myself, also open to the learning, and hearing what the rest of the group has to bring as well. So it's kind of like, it's not, okay, now I'm a coach trainer, done, like I'm
yeah,
ready to do my job. No, it's like I'm
yeah.
constantly absorbing, constantly learning, constantly. Yeah. Does that answer your question in a very long-winded way?
It does. It does. there's something here, you know. Every time you answer a question, you go, "Have I answered your question? Have I?" You have. You've blown it away. So it's all good. It's all good. And I think there's so many kind of valuable pieces you pulled out there. But I often kind of harp on around values and the importance of values. I think for people to identify them, and I always see it as a visual way to see it almost as the funnel that you feel to kind of life
Yeah.
through, and to see how it kind of interacts with those values. And the biggest one for me, like in terms of this conversation, is around lifelong learning.
Mm.
And I think coaching is so like kind of parallel to that value of lifelong learning, that the aspect of me, touch wood, even being 75, 80, and maybe just coaching half a day a week just to keep the brain ticking, but still learning things at 75, 80, that truly excites me. And it's a silly parallel, but even
Mm.
the sports I play, like golf, like I can literally play golf till I'm 75, 80 and still learn things, how to play, and that's what excites me. So I think there's various aspects. That's just one, of course. I think for people who want to become a coach, I think it's really important to have that understanding and that awareness that it's not just I do my ICF, I get signed
Yeah.
off, and then I'm done. It's a constant, continuous process throughout your whole lifetime, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Agree 100%. And I hope that we'll be playing golf on the golf course. I also play golf and love it. We haven't had a chance to play yet, but
Nice.
yeah, absolutely love to be playing on the golf course with you in 50 years' time.
I tell you what, that's a hell of a goal to have. And as you're very much international, as you said at the beginning, there's some, mind my language, but there's some bloody good golf courses where you are in the world. So I think touch words, that's a nice little business trip in 2 or 3 years.
Sounds like a
So
plan.
that'll be good. So you spoke about a little bit of the two pathways, I suppose, of coach trainer, and even you mentioned 50 odd courses
Yeah.
roughly, of like smaller ones to kind of substantial courses. I suppose every week, and that's partly perhaps what both me and you, I would say, enjoy in terms of the variety of coaching is very much different. But if you were to kind of talk about what an average week looks like for you as a kind of coach trainer, what would you say that involves?
Yeah, this is what this is what I was saying to you beforehand, is that this is a really hard question to answer because alongside that lifelong learning, one of my key values is freedom and adventure. And so there needs to be variety, there needs to be freedom. But if it's a 9 to 5, same week, every week looks the same, then I kind of get a bit panicky and don't feel too comfortable with that. But I think if I had to kind of make an average, I guess, of like 4 weeks in a month or whatever, what that looks like, I would say it's kind of 2 to 4 full training days a week. So full training day, like a 9 to 5 training day. Um, that since COVID is all online, all on Zoom. Was 100% face to face, which meant I was traveling back and forth to the UK a lot, to different countries here in Europe. I now have 2 small kids, so it's actually really good that it's online. But then the 3 days or the day that I'm not training, 2, 3 days that I'm not delivering full day trainings, I'll have coaching sessions with corporate clients that I work with, or one-to-one private. Kind of have like 4 to 5 generally private one-to-one clients that I'm working with at a time. Mentoring sessions with people like lovely people like yourself. Corporate, a lot of the corporate training I do is kind of like 2 hour snippets. People are just so busy, right? That we've kind of worked out with a lot of the organizations I work with that 2 hour leadership training is what works best. So you kind of pop that into a just before lunch or just after lunch in a manager's day kind of thing. So a bit of that, a bit of competency work with the ICF, like what we call master classes or learning forums, teaching people about so it's a lot of variety, which actually is a huge challenge for me because I don't know if you're familiar with disc profiles, right? I have like 0% blue. I have like 3 or 4% blue. So I'm like really not structured and organized. And so I have to be super organized to like work. It's almost like, how does everything fit in with each other so that I can do the full day's training, or so that I can do the coaching sessions, the 2 hour slots. But touch wood, over the last kind of 3, 4 years, I've got quite a good rhythm and worked out how to sort of sort that out in advance. And then last minute stuff kind of comes in, and I sort of, learn how to say no, which it
Yeah.
wasn't easy a couple of years ago, but definitely learned how to say no and know if something will fit into the current existing diary or not. But I think, yeah, it's a couple of days training and then all of the sort of other, like I said, bits and bobs, which aren't bits and bobs. They're great. They're great bits that I love, but they're just shorter, I guess, in their time frame. I think the key is the space between them. I always make sure I've got at least sort of like 15 minutes, half an hour between things, so that I've got space to potentially let go of whatever I've just been diving into with someone, and then like get myself in the right space to connect to the next topic, whatever whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, I find my weeks exciting. I find them like really energizing. Um, they're different energy to the weekends with my two young boys. But it's yeah, fun. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for kind of sharing that with us and kind of listeners. And it's interesting you mentioned this profile because I was thinking in my mind, and I'm sure it's coaching. I think perhaps yourself or others I've heard is it's not just a science; it's an art
Mm,
and science as a kind of a twofold approach to it. But like I think from a disc point of view, I think I was very much a blue
mm,
green, and I was perhaps masking my authentic self. And then I think as I kind of grew more awareness around who I am, my passions, I flipped it on its head very much to a green blue. And then God knows what it is now. I reckon it's already changed as well. But even in the space of a
mm,
year, it completely flipped as I kind of gave more oxygen
mm,
into the things I enjoy, rather than just being like Mr.
mm,
Corporate Man. And it'd be interesting. I wonder with this, I think of like executive coaching or other stuff. Would it be more red or and I'm sure different profiles could do everything, of course. But yeah, I wondered if they're even in the whole introvert extrovert, which is I think is an interesting thing with coaching because I very much and it might have been Simon Sinek that in terms of the definition for me, it's just how do you get your
mm.
energy. So although I'm very much I can go to a party and be like centre of attention and like I can talk to a rock, which I think is a compliment. Or they're telling me, shut up, mate.
About that.
So it might be that. But when I come back from a
Yeah.
day, I need to like go on the computer, whatever, just sit on my own,
Mm,
decompress, and get my energy top again. So I wonder how your experience you've had with this and introversion,
mm.
extroversion is any themes or is actually anyone can do anything.
It's a good question. I think, I mean, I reference the disc, right, just because it's so cliche, isn't it? The no blue, the like 98% yellow, whatever it is. It's I When I first became a coach trainer, I trained in a lot of profiling tools, so like disc, emotional intelligence, collective intelligence. I don't know, like loads of Robert Dilt's NLP tools, things like that. So that I thought I needed them to be able to sell to organizations, and don't get me wrong, it's super, super interesting, the learning through going through the training of those tools. But I also have a huge, my kind of like values of freedom and adventure have a huge sort of like, whoa, 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 like you're kind of putting people into boxes kind of thing with those kind of profiles. So I'm always super wary of how you use them and how people read them. I guess I kind of use them as a basis to get somebody to sort of share, okay, how does that sit with you? If that's what, like you were saying, I'm a green and a blue. Okay, how does that work for you right now? What does that look like? Is that something that you're enjoying, is energizing you, or actually is you looking for something else? Because I have the belief that you can, turn the page, change the story whenever you want. Just takes the energy and drive to do so. So I think I had a great example of this in the organization I used to work for, Babolat. One of the financial controllers, he was like super high up in the organization, very blue, a little bit of green, but a little bit of
Yeah.
red, but like very blue, very he left to set up a startup that like doing electric scooters for sort of like delivery for takeout and stuff like that. Just like real entrepreneurial, really needed a load of yellow and red to sort of have the drive and the energy to go out and talk to people. Like, so there's no set format. It's like don't get stuck in a don't get my advice is like don't get stuck in a box, and don't live up to I for ages in a corporate environment, when I did the profile, I thought like, oh, I'm a yellow, so I've got to be the clown. I've got to be the one that kind of like makes everyone laugh. I've got to be the one that speaks up and does the presentation. I've got to be, rather than actually I am really structured and I can, make a plan and I can organize. Doesn't not gonna haven't got any blue that I can't do that. So it's kind of like, yes, they're interesting and they do help you to understand how you function, how you communicate, also how others do. That's almost what I find the most interesting. But I'm always super wary to just be like, don't get yourself stuck in that box. Don't give yourself a label because you're not that. You're whatever you want to be. You're, like you said, your authentic self. You just got to learn how to move beyond the things that are it's kind of like the Toltec agreements. Move beyond what the labels that have been given to you, and decide for yourself who you want to be, what you want to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I did the same very much in terms of playing into that blue, like you said. So I was like, oh, I'm Mr. Like very good at
Yeah.
controlling, very good at organisation, very good at structures. And then, funny enough, I became a project manager. So like it was
Yeah.
very like living up to the expectations I suppose put on me. And of course, like everyone kind of has that organisation trait to a certain degree. But there was definitely aspects of creativity and entrepreneurism and aspects which I suppose I'm feeding oxygen now. So I completely agree with you that, it's quite scary actually for a lot of people. Like I always say, people prefer certain discomfort rather than the uncertainty of life. And they like to, you know what, I just, don't talk to me, Naomi. I just want to plod along. I just want to do this. This is the explanations. I'm too scared to kind of step out of that immediate box or what is expected of me. But my goodness, once you do it, it's peeking behind the curtain and thinking, oh, actually, this is how life could be. I could live life on my own terms. So it's incredibly empowering. Um, and I suppose going back to that kind of coach trainer aspect of you, and obviously I was very much someone who kind of utilised and saw you in kind of full flow
Yeah.
in that training role. But how do you help students, I suppose, or corporates perhaps, but how do you help students to kind of develop their coaching techniques as part of a coach
It's
training
a really
role?
good question. For me, it's a little bit like coaching in a way. It's about giving somebody space. So I think a
Mm.
lot of the concepts, a lot of the things that we explore, somebody has to experience that. Somebody has to sort of like live that, breathe that almost to understand what that means. So for example, like just to give you a simple example, in leadership coach training, for example, talk about the types of questions that leaders use, right? And quite often
Mm.
when I, check in at the start, okay, how do you think how do you think you're doing in terms of asking your team open questions, making sure that it's not just like from you that decisions are coming, etc., etc. Yeah, I think I'm pretty good at that. Okay, great. So let's just do a couple of short exercises, and I get them to do things like I put them into subgroups, and they're only allowed to ask each other closed questions for a couple of minutes, or they're only allowed to ask each other open questions, or they're only allowed to they have to try and convince the other person of something. And so you kind of like you put yourself in the feet of, okay, wow, if I only do this or if I only do that, it's almost like the extremes. They experience it and they come back and go, okay, yeah, maybe I am doing a bit more of that or a bit more of that than I thought I was. And it's, I guess what I love is kind of like seeing the penny drop for people. And I guess how I try to help
Mm.
somebody is like, okay, that didn't, I tried that and the penny didn't drop there. Okay, what else can I do? And this expression probably from coaching, there's that kind of like you can't force awareness, you can lead the horse to water but you can't make it drink. But I guess I'm constantly kind of trying to show the water. I'm going to say, okay, like, this is on offer, have a look at this. But I guess my strength is in not pushing, is in giving somebody the space and
Yeah.
time to it will connect when it connects. Everybody's on their own journey at their own pace, at their own, and I'm not there to tell somebody how to do something. I'm just here to say like there are different ways of exploring things. There are different ways, and if you're keen to have a look, then and not when I get pushback or challenge, which I get a lot, this is a silly way to do things, or like why does this like very hierarchical way of doing things that we've been doing for the last 50 years not work? It's like that's not about me, that's about the way that somebody, that's their model of the world, that's how they've experienced their career for the past however many years. So by not taking something personally, like, okay, yeah, sure, let's explore that way, let's have a look at that, then it gives somebody the space to actually think, okay, maybe there is another way of thinking about it. So yeah, I think space is the
Mm.
answer to in a nutshell, the answer to your question.
And I love that exercise about the open questions because very quickly you could see how someone's like, closed questions
Mm.
they excel perhaps, and the open questions they're like, oh, I can't think of one. And you can it very quickly. It allows them to, it's a very the whole exercise and everything, kind of what you're doing, and what I say with coaching, you empower him. You're not telling them what to do. You're like you said, you're giving them the information. You're allowing them to have it. And even for my NHS
Yeah.
background of health coaching, if you coach people and they set the goals themselves to lose weight or whatever it is, they're X amount percent more likely to actually kind of continue that journey rather than say, you're overweight, you need to do this. They're going to do it for a week and then kind of lose interest. Um, and the open questions bit, that really resonates with me because I remember when I was one of kind of an operational leadership role, I knew nothing about the job and I was dealing with people who were at least double, if
Mm.
not twice my age at the time. So I was in kind of early 20s. And it was just typical, and I've had to deal with this my whole life of like, who's this youngster? He's going to come in, he's going to tell us what to do and all the rest of it. And then they were amazed because I just asked them a load of questions
Yeah.
for like 3 to 6 months. And my team almost got used to it. They would come to me and I'd say, I got this wrong, this was wrong, what should I do? And I'd say, okay, what did you do last time? Okay, what do you think you should do? And it was I never told them what to do. And after about 6 months, they would come to me, knowing the questions I would ask, go, well, I've done this, I think do you think
Mm.
that's okay? I'm like, great. And it was just of like confidence. I never tell them what to do, and that just allowed me to be, in my mind, a true product manager because it made me to basically manage myself out of my job because I would empower all my team to do what they do rather than relying on me for my ego and all the rest of it. No, come to Michael because then I feel important and I tell you what to do. No, they don't need to come to me at all because all I've done is just kept give
Nice.
them room for to fail safely and allow them to progress. And then that way, all of a sudden, I was a really good manager with KPIs. But it's because I actually had time to look forward. If my team were actually doing the doing, rather than constantly, with the
Yeah.
fire hose out, sorting out problems. So I think that was really, really
Yeah,
powerful
it
what
sounds
you
like
shared.
it's a great example. You hadn't told me about that one before. It,
I keep
yeah,
it in the
yeah,
sleeve.
it's just exactly that. And I think what's interesting in what you're saying is it's about giving, I guess, rather than taking. And in the world that we live in today, unfortunately, there's a lot of taking, a lot of bringing to ourselves rather than a lot of just kind of like opening out and giving and sharing and even from an emotional perspective, sharing vulnerability, um sort of like inspiring.
Yeah,
But I think you probably remember, I hope you remember, if you listened correctly on the course, me like sharing mistakes that I'd made, like things that I'd done wrong, rather than, oh yeah, look at me, I did this worked really well. It's like, actually, yes, I'm a human too, we're all human. Let's acknowledge that in the space within which we're working. So yeah, cool.
definitely. Definitely. And I suppose we spoke a lot about the processes and some of the aspects and the tasks that you do. What would you say as a kind of a coach trainer? What are some of the more rewarding or challenging aspects of the job?
Good question. um I think, without wanting to be repetitive, I think the rewarding moments are when you see the penny drop, when you see somebody really kind of take on board something and like for themselves. Quite often, you get, and I did exactly the same when I was in those shoes. I remember sort of like copying the style of the coach that I'd observed during my training and things like that. And it's then when I start to see people let go of imitating how they've seen me coach and actually really embracing their own style, who they are. That is just so rewarding for me because I can sort of see somebody fly away with their own wings, kind of thing. And then the challenges, I guess, you used a word a minute ago, is kind of managing your own ego, I guess. It's kind of like, because you need to be continuously working on yourself at the same time so that you don't get caught up in your own drama, you don't get caught, triggered yourself in terms of when you get pushed back, when you get someone saying, well, I don't understand, it doesn't make sense. It's rather than making that about you, making that about what you're sharing, about the just being able to kind of be aware of what you know, where you know it, how you know it, and sharing that. And beyond that, saying, I don't know everything, far from it. And just sort of having that, again, vulnerability or that awareness to just be like, this is what I can offer. If that's not sufficient, or if that doesn't, and I think sometimes that's easily said. Sometimes when you're tired, when you haven't slept because your children haven't slept, etc., you can kind of come in with a mindset that where you could push back, I guess. And from a teaching perspective, the more I guess one thing I've learned from my parents absolutely is the more that you are open to people, the more that you're kind to people, then the easier it is to do your job. So it's not a challenge, it's a privilege, but I guess we're human, right? So sometimes we're not always able to show up in that space. Yeah.
This is so true, and I think you said about the kind of the changing aspects, and what might trigger us or biases. I remember early doors. Obviously, our niche and all the rest of it kind of evolved and will continuously change and take different forms throughout our whole kind of coaching career. But like a niche earlier, I suppose when I was doing all aspects of coaching on all areas, relationships, health, careers, etc., to kind of get an understanding of one, what do I actually enjoy most? Then I can operate in my kind of zone of genius, I suppose. I did a lot around health coaching, and I personally found it triggering because it's something I've always struggled with since a teenager around kind of not physical fitness, but more kind of eating, I suppose, and stuff like that. And that's a thing I constantly kind of strive and work on. But that opportunity, like you said, yes, it's a challenge,
Yeah.
but actually it's a privilege because that coaching session gives you like the mirror to shine up self-awareness to yourself to say, oh, you felt really hard and you felt challenged coaching this individual around health, and you're thinking in your head, how can I coach this person
Yeah.
when I struggle with my health in terms of eating myself? And that's a really, really powerful moment because it allows you to see those areas to work on. And obviously, I kind of pivoted more to career because what I realise is whenever I talk to people and I say, how are things? What I'm actually asking is, how's your job? So when I say things and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And then if they don't mention their job, I go, how's a job? Because that's actually what I was asking because that's vaguely, not actually, so
Yeah.
that's what specifically I'm interested in. Because I think we spend so much time in our professional careers, crikey, you want to be doing something that kind of fills you up. But yeah, I really resonate with what you shared about how that it can be challenging in a way, and actually how it's a privilege
It's kind
that
of
the
like it's a
challenges it
challenge, and
brings.
it's a blessing and a curse because it's almost like your job is
Yeah,
forcing you or inviting you strongly to work on yourself, which is absolutely something that you do anyway because of the kind of person that you are. But actually sometimes you're just like, oh my God, do I have to go? And I've literally just worked through, whatever relationship or challenge or difficulty, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm good. I'm good in my own skin. I'm happy in my relationships. I've worked out what's going on with my dad and this and that. And then I'm like, oh, this again, something else, new, different. And it's a blessing and it is a curse, but it's a good curse.
I tell you what, I didn't think I knew that phrase before I started. No, you're spot on, though. And speaking about coaching at a wider sense, I suppose, where and people who are listening perhaps thinking, this coaching stuff, it's a bit of me, this, or and maybe I actually like the coach or trainer, I like the idea of whether it's personal or more corporate, kind of doing that leadership coaching. I think what's important to kind of give yourself and understand to our listeners, what do you think are some of the most common misconceptions or myths about coaching that perhaps people have come to you over your time, that you find not perhaps are as
Mm.
true?
Um, I think again, I hope it's not just recency bias, but literally what we were just saying. I think that one of the common, I think, misconceptions is that, and excuse my French, is that you have to have your own shit sorted. Like, as in, you have to be working on yourself. You have to be, you have to have that, like we've said, that readiness and that want to evolve, to understand yourself, to grow. But you don't have to be perfect because perfect doesn't exist. And I think one of the misconceptions is as a coach you've got it all sorted and you got it all figured out, and you're no. I think that's probably misconception number one. Um Misconception, I think, number two is probably like coaching is airy fairy. It's kind of woo woo, whatever you want to call it. It's really not. I'm somebody that, don't get me wrong, I'm into my Reiki, into my hypnosis, into my, my dad's an Anglican priest, so I've got a spirituality and a religion, there's that. but it's super grounded. I work with people in corporate environments who are super grounded, and I don't want to ask the question, "How are you feeling?" We talk about lots of other things and explore feelings and emotions in different ways, but it doesn't have to be airy fairy. Coaching. No, I don't want to do coaching. It's a conversation. It's about a conversation about being a human, right? So I think that's probably misconception number two. Um, I think there's something about like the business side of it, the financial side of it, either kind of like the I can be a millionaire TikTok, Instagram coach slash are you really a coach, or are you a motivational speaker? Or on the other end of the spectrum, I can't earn a living from being a coach. So I think there's something there around like, again, you define your own reality, right? I have the firm belief that you make happen what what you desire, what you want to happen. So um yeah, I think those for me would be the three off the top of my head. It's one question I didn't think about beforehand, so I don't think I'm just thinking if I've missed anything. But yeah, I would say those are kind of like three things to be wary of or to explore and discuss before making an assumption. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad I've asked you a question you haven't thought about, because
Caught me off. Yeah, caught me off
actually
guard.
appreciate your comfort zone. So that's a good thing. But I really like the ones you kind of shared there. I mean, a lot of the things that was levelled to me actually from people when I entered coaching was, who are you to coach someone? And I think there's a common misconception, I would say, with mentoring and coaching, and especially I would say in America, coaching is almost, I would say, more mentoring. So rather than, and I would describe this, and please, honestly, Naomi, I'll give you permission. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, coaching is a very level relationship. Whereas mentor, I just think it's top down, like you tell that person what to do. And people were saying, who are you? 28, yes, you change your careers, you transition. Who are you to tell people what to do in terms of their careers? And then once I kind of, I suppose, try to educate them on what coaching is, they had a far greater understanding of, oh, of course, yeah, you'll be amazing at that. You're really good at asking questions and opening people up and all. And I think that was the big misconception I had, firstly. But secondly, those who knew me, who are close to me, will probably say I'm one of the most practical people they know in their network. I'm very tangible, and I'm very, yes, I want to change your mindset, and I want to take over the world, and I want you to live your best life. Here's the action plan. Here's the milestones. How are we going to get it done? So I think especially two of those three, I agree with all three, but two of those three I can
And
really relate
I
to
think
personally.
what's interesting
So
is that kind of links to what we were saying before about the challenge of it's almost like when you're that passionate about coaching and what it means and how it supports people, it's when people that don't know about it or maybe have a curiosity about it but have not necessarily done their exploration of the homework can kind of like push back. It's then that the challenge comes up to actually stay in your coaching mindset and stay with it, rather than sometimes I think when I'm really passionate about it's like a bit like sports when I'm like Rugby World Cup at the moment, right? It's like when somebody starts to attack England rugby or France, the French team, I'm kind of like whoa, 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 and I'll start to defend, like I've got to dive straight into the trap that someone's kind of setting up for me. And it's the same thing, I think, when you're passionate about something. It's okay, how do you share that passion in the best way rather than getting caught up in trying to trying to prove something to someone and experience it for themselves, and it will sell itself, kind of thing.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think given all that we covered and discussed, I suppose hopefully that's given a real kind of potted history for people who are interested in the world of coaching and perhaps that coach trainer piece in particular. And that's given a bit of an understanding of some of the tasks, some of the roles, some of the skills and qualities, that are really kind of core and fundamental to kind of, enter that profession. But you mentioned a younger Naomi at Babolat, and I'm wondering if you had a conversation with that young Naomi. I'm not going to guess how many years ago because I'll get told off. But you had a conversation with that young Naomi. What would be perhaps some of your advice? What would you share with that young Naomi before entering this industry?
I think this industry, I almost think this industry or any industry, I would probably give the same. I mean, I don't know. I can only I can only speak from where I'm standing, but I think the first one would be trust yourself. It kind of comes back to that kind of like that inner knowing, that gut feeling. Um, yeah, trust yourself, because I think when I was talking back to that sort of younger version of myself, I think I was very much up here and very much sort of like thinking about things and analyzing things, whereas now I don't make any decisions from up here. Everything is just in like a gut feeling, a gut. I know if it's right or if it's wrong. So I think trust yourself. And then sort of almost like how to trust yourself is learn to, listen to the signs, hear the, without getting woo, it's almost just like listen to what people, the feedback that you're getting, listen to, check in with yourself. How energized do you feel at the end of the day? How excited do you feel about something? How scared do you feel about something? I now have this thing since I went traveling 6 or 7 years ago, is when I'm afraid of something, I have to do it, which sometimes gets me into some sticky situations. But it's yeah, being able to listen to yourself, which the more you listen to yourself, the more you trust yourself. So I would have said that to myself. What else would I have said? Be patient. I'm really impatient. I'm really like, when I see what I want and I see where I want to go, then I want to be there now. I think I've shared with you before, like some of my upcoming
Yeah,
projects. Like we could be doing a podcast in a couple of years' time where I'm going to be like, yes, I'm doing this, and I'm not a coach or a coach trainer, or that's still part of what I do, but I do other things as well. And I kind of see myself there now, and I want to be there. But actually, it's be patient, enjoy, without again being cliche, like enjoy the present moment. Like, what are you grateful for now? Because everything that you have now, everything that you're experiencing now, is contributing to who you're going to be tomorrow. And if you're experiencing to the full what you're doing today, then that is going to contribute hugely to that picture. So I'd say that. I'd say, yeah, trust yourself, be patient, and use your support network. I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have the what I consider a dream life for myself today if it hadn't been for my sister, if it hadn't been for my colleagues at the time, that my colleagues now, for my wife who supported me throughout my like the whole journey. Um, and I really rely on, like, as in with my sister, we leave each other like motivational WhatsApp voice notes every day, like multiple times a day. Some say it's too much, but we love it. But we challenge each other, we question each other. And I think the support net, people like to help. So it's like asking for help and relying on your support network. I think,
yeah,
yeah, would be. I think there were times when I sort of thought I'm alone. I can't, I don't have anyone to rely on. But actually, yeah, be yourself, be patient, and ask for help.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Amazing. I mean, and the one quick thing I would just add on that is there's often a phrase which again it might sound cliche, but it's the whole kind of journey before destination, and it's enjoying the journey that you're on. And I've even used it and parsley, sorry because I wouldn't have said it now, but as a password for certain things,
Nice.
just to kind of to my like subconscious of like stop being impatient journey. And I know kind of Ali Abdul, a famous kind of speaker, kind of speaks on that. And it's almost you look at these serial entrepreneurs, and they're always chasing that. They get that bug, they build a
Mm,
business, and they're successful. They don't need to work, but they're still building new businesses to
mm,
start from scratch because it's the journey. It's exciting of building a team, having a startup, rather than just getting to that end point. And I'm very much a victim of this. Sometimes I'm very impatient. I'm incredibly visual, so I picture exactly where I want to be. So I do feel like I'm already there. So I very much kind of resonate with a lot that you kind of just shared. Um, and I suppose on that, we've kind of had a real diverse and real rich kind of conversation. So thank you for your kind of time, though. But is there anything that we haven't covered today that you wanted to discuss?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess if somebody's listening to your podcast in the sort of the hope to, connect with, or be inspired by different careers that people are talking and sharing about, I think there's something about, and I'm absolutely not an expert in this space, it's just I guess something that I'm observing and that you sort of you read about more and more, is that, you know, our parents' generation, I'm putting us in the same generation, Michael, but I don't know about your parents, but I know for sure that like my parents and their friends very much had one career with one organization in one space kind of thing, or two. And nowadays, you know, everybody's had two, three, four, five jobs by the time they're 30 kind of thing. And I think there can be something sort of almost scary about that there's so much change. But I think it's almost like embracing the change. It by definition is the only constant kind of thing. So going with the, you know, going with the flow rather than resisting it and fighting it, and almost just, yeah, it's just kind of, it comes back to what you said, the authentic self piece, just trusting that you can do and you can be whoever you want to be, you decide that. And yeah, the world's your oyster. I have in my diary, off the back of a coaching session that I have in my diary, which I didn't say earlier, in my weekly, what my week looks like, TWIMO days, which is the world is my oyster days, which are days where I do whatever the hell I want to do. It's I play golf, I work if I want to, I take my kids out and do something. But it really just is, that is just constant reminder that the world is your oyster and that you don't have to go down a specific path. You can choose the path that you go down, and you can choose it again and again, and you can go off in all directions. And yeah, ramblings to finish basically, but yeah, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Well, there's ramblings or words of wisdom. I mean, it's it could be one that's there's a balance, there's a spectrum. No, I'm teasing, but no. Thank you so much for giving your time, Naomi. And I suppose if people, like you said, if people want to continue this conversation, and they're interested in the world of coaching or coach trainer,
Oh,
where perhaps could they
in
go and
France.
find yourself?
Free for conversations in the southeast of France, absolutely. Yeah, I have a website, Alma Explore, which is in the process of being updated with all of the exciting projects I've mentioned to you. But I'm on LinkedIn, Naomi Bearcroft. I'm really, you know, I'm really bad with social media, so you can contact me and I will see the message at some point and get back to you. But I do, that's one thing that I do actually do, is I do have a lot of conversations with people that want to become coaches or coach trainers. People reach out to me quite a bit with questions of, you know, what does that look like and how does that work? So now I'm just going to say, I don't need to have a conversation with you. Go and listen to Michael's podcast. But it's something that I'm super happy to do, because if it means that there's more people working in this space and that are helping others, then I'm always happy to do that. So yeah.
100%, and I'll make sure to include links in the show notes to all of kind of Naomi's socials, so you can kind of reach out. But yeah, thank you. Like I said, thanks again for your time, Naomi. It's been a really, really kind of rich and insightful conversation. And to the listeners, I hope you kind of enjoyed that. Another kind of key career in terms of the world of coaching and coach trainer. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Catapult Your Career.